Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope y'all are doing well and enjoying your day so far. With Los Angeles Thieves acquiring Huke in an absolutely blockbuster deal, there's been a lot of questions raised about some of the players that are now sitting on the bench of that lineup, especially regarding SlasheR. There's been some talk these last few days, the fact that SlasheR is willing to take a pretty significant pay cut to get off the Los Angeles Thieves and get onto another team where he can start to prove himself once again. Intrigued to take your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, also thank you to Draftbuff for sponsoring today's content. The league starts up again tomorrow, the final week of Stage 3 action before the Major, of course, kicks off next time around. If you want to get involved with some fantasy stuff, this is certainly the place to be. Congratulations to these 7 ladies and gentlemen for winning last week. No Hand Simp takes the crown, 524.94 points with this team of Dashy, Simp, Attach, Scump and Cammy with Toronto Ultra in the books as well. First out of 6,741. Very impressive stuff. If you guys would like to get involved and beat my team that I'm putting up this week, then feel free to do so at the link down below in the draft rail. Effectively, the idea is you pick some players that you think are good value for money based on the amount of points that they are worth, depending on their previous performances. And then, well, if you happen to win, then you get bragging rights and all that good stuff. So, well, this is my team. I'm going for Inside, Decimate, Dashy, Huke, and Standy. Huke, I think, is pretty good value for money, given the fact that he didn't have the greatest time when he finished off on the Dallas Empire. And Decimate only 20 points. Should be decent value for money, but at the end of the day, Seattle are playing FaZe first up, so that might not be too pretty. Thanks to Draftbuff once again, and let's dive into what I wanted to talk about today. So we did mention this briefly earlier today, the fact that, okay, SlasheR, what's he hinting at right here? Is he talking about potentially getting into challenges and actually going through the pit on that side of things? Because maybe that's an option, especially with TJ sitting there as well. I mean, there's so many players right now that have been in the Pro League for so many years, now sitting on the bench and considering their options in challenges. Of course, if you're making a lot of money on the bench, maybe you don't have too much eagerness to actually go down to the absolute pit to try and grind yourself way back to the top again, especially if you have as much presence in the scene as SlasheR does. I think he could probably, not play for too long and still get a great opportunity back onto a team. However, what opportunities really are there right now? And how many teams are there really looking for a complete culture overhaul? Because that's the thing with SlasheR. If you bring him into your team, you're going to need to effectively change up the entire way your team dynamics work. I mean, we're looking at a team like Florida, for example. The idea that, okay, maybe Awakening and Skies, is that duo necessarily working? You can certainly look at the SMGs on that team and say, okay, maybe that's where the issue lies with this squad. But at the same time, you haven't really got Skies and Awakening on the same page. So maybe you can imagine a world in which they say, all right, Skies, I mean, it's been great working with you, but maybe we bring in SlasheR and then we see what works from there. I don't really know if that's going to happen. Probably not. But SlasheR's certainly talking about, as we'll look at in a few minutes time here, that he's certainly willing to take a pay cut right now to actually get himself off of this team. And that might mean a squad like Florida Mutineers could consider him, given the fact that they wanted Huke. Maybe they've got some money lying around that they're, thinking about how could they deploy this capital. As Looney says yesterday as well, World War II Rise Nation on the bench other than Big P. Thought this is pretty crazy to think about. And certainly, this is where the whole expansion team question comes into play. Will it be that some of these phenomenal players on the bench right now, SlasheR included, will have to wait for expansion to come back? As Squad League tweets out right here, back in 2018, and Methods tweets out, that was this one from the Rise Nation squad way back in World War II early on. This is where Methods was on the team with alongside TJ right here, before, SlasheR then comes in after CDL Atlanta, or they win CDL Atlanta, then it kind of goes a little bit downhill and Methods ends up getting dropped, and SlasheR comes into this lineup and they win a couple of events for the rest of the season. But as you can see, Looney over here, TJ here, Methods right here. I mean, what's going to happen, right? We've also seen Rise Nation as an organization kind of interested potentially to get back into the scene next season. That might be something that happens, and they might pick up some of these players, certainly if they are still sitting there on the bench next season, right? But TJ's been a phenomenal player really for a number of years, been at the top of the Call of Duty scene. It's been a big shock to a lot of people for him to be benched, but at the same time, there's been probably more shocking changes. I think the SlasheR one, honestly, is more shocking than TJ getting benched. But there's a lot of teams right now in the CDL that are struggling, that may require their services or may improve in their services even before, expansion franchises necessarily come into play. I thought this was kind of funny for Methods as well. I have a notebook with the names of every pro I saw tweeting something when someone else was benched, but not when I was. So Methods on his revenge tour when he does finally get his opportunity as well. But I thought this is pretty remarkable, because not too long ago, this is at the start of March, I mean only a couple of months ago, we had SlasheR and Temp getting this crazy 2 versus 7 clutch, I believe it was, up against Toronto Ultra. And of course, these guys since then, long gone off the team. Temp is left, now he's on Paris Legion. SlasheR as well, of course, sitting on the bench now for quite a while after they decided to get rid of him just before the Stage 2 Major, bringing in Kenny, TJ, Venom, and Drazah that has done so well since then. And of course, with Huke coming in, that is certainly an opportunity that you do not pass up if you have the money ready to go. This is kind of how their season has turned around since they did bench SlasheR off the team. You can see that before the SlasheR bench, it really was on a downhill trajectory right here. But since then, they've won a couple of good series. They've certainly beaten some very solid teams, and their only losses so far coming to Toronto Ultra and Atlanta FaZe, and a great result from Thieves Thieves up against OpTic Chicago last weekend, most certainly. So SlasheR finds himself in a pretty tough spot right now, but you've got to think, the fact that they've got Huke into their team, do they ever have a world at Los Angeles Thieves right now where they need SlasheR to come back into their team? It's somewhat tough to say, because right now Kenny's been absolutely killing it on the main AR, Drazah is the second main AR. I don't think that's something that you want to switch up this season at the very least. We talked about earlier today the possibility that if Octane's available, they might consider someone like him to come back into the team, and maybe that means that SlasheR could have an opportunity as well, depending on exactly what Kenny wants to do next season. But at the same time, if I'm Los Angeles Thieves right now, I'm kind of thinking about moving in a different direction to SlasheR going forwards. Maybe don't want to mess up the chemistry that this team has once again that maybe SlasheR did before. So if I'm SlasheR, I'm thinking, okay, where else can I go? Especially with LAN just on the horizon. He says not too long ago, LAN is back. I will be waiting. Stage 4, we're pretty sure is on LAN. Stage 5, we're pretty sure is on LAN. And then Championship certainly is going to be in a LAN environment as well. And as we talked about with Huke, it'd be a bit of a shame not to see SlasheR get his opportunity at some of these situations. However, how long has it really got for the rest of the season for these teams to actually make changes to bring in a guy like SlasheR? And that would be obviously a major culture shift for these teams and these organizations. And I wanted to share what Pac-Man said on the podcast just a couple of days ago, discussing the fact that SlasheR says that, look, he'd be pretty willing to take some sort of pay cut in order to get off this organization.
Like these orgs with players like SlasheR and Huke on the bench, like, do you think that they'll be released, or the orgs are like going to keep them, make like quote unquote more business moves and be like ratty and stuff?
Well, it's not ratty. Let's get that out. Let's get that. Let's get that out there. It is not ratty. It's not. I can't divulge what some of these players are making, but trust me, if you were paying that, you would not just release them because you dropped them. That's just not how it works. You're going to try to do what you can to get your money back or make the right play. Releasing them is out of the question. With players like that, I do hope that they are able to come to some sort of deal. I know someone like Austin, he wouldn't mind me saying this. He said he would take a pay cut if he could just find a way to get off the team so he could go play again. These people want to compete. These are competitors. But I mean, there's also a world where you have some really, really strong players on your bench. You might not want to not release. You might not want to trade them. You might not want to give them that opportunity to go beat you somewhere else. Who knows what it may be. And SlasheR is certainly not wrong when he says the following: a bench team would do better than teams in the league. And probably only added to this right now the fact that TJ has just been bench. SlasheR and TJ have obviously played for quite a long time at this point. Whether they actually want to go somewhere as a duo, or whether Los Angeles Thieves will move down in a different direction here and decide to keep TJ for a time in case their new starting team doesn't work. But just wanted to point out some of the players that are on the bench right now, which teams could either potentially try and snag from another lineup, or they could actually form their own team going into expansion going forwards. Because I do wonder, especially now we're middle of stage 3, as I say, a guy like SlasheR, even if he is taking a pretty massive pay cut, obviously he wants to compete when he's a competitor at heart. He doesn't want to just be sitting there on the bench. He wants to have his opportunity to get his revenge against a team like Los Angeles Thieves or whatever, if they do decide to move another direction, and prove that he can still do it, right? Because there's been a lot of talk about him and his leadership style and why it might have caused issues for teams in the past. I'm sure he's very willing and able to try and get back to the top in one way or another and get onto another team. But as I say, bringing a guy like SlasheR in, you've pretty much got to change the entirety of how your team operates. And I'm kind of looking at Florida Mutineers and wondering if that's something they might consider. But at the same time, it's a massive risk for them to take, especially at this point in the season. Do they necessarily need to take that risk? If they can win a few more series, Mutineers can still make it to the World Championship. And I believe they're in 9th place right now, 10 points behind the Los Angeles Guerrillas, who currently have that spot for the 8th place seed that makes the World Championship, of course, the top 8. But these are some of the players. You've got Slacked on the bench over there. Ravens, of course, have some phenomenally talented players that unfortunately haven't really got too much of an opportunity this season, apart from Dylan. Vivid's on the LAG bench. You've got TJ and SlasheR over Los Angeles Thieves. MajorManiak, Rokkr, Subliners have Diamond Con, of course. OpTic have General, certainly. And you've got Seattle Surge with Looney on the bench. And Ultra as well have Methods sitting on the sideline. So pretty remarkable to see some of the players that are on the bench right here. What do you think will happen, right? Do you think that SlasheR, even if he says, look, Thieves, it's been great, but at the end of the day, if they're going to give me pretty much any offer, I'm willing to take it, and hopefully you guys can trade me out of this situation so I can start proving myself once again. Even if that is the case, until expansion comes into play, I'm not necessarily sure SlasheR is going to get that opportunity. At the same time, I thought that Huke might be stuck on the bench for the rest of the season. That did not happen at all, and there's still, of course, time for these teams to make changes going forwards. And as you can see right here, just so much talent down in the challenger scene as well. This isn't even scratching the surface of European challengers, but as you can see in North American challengers, so many players right here that have either been in the Pro League in the past or, really making their breakthrough. And there's so many talented players that are sitting just on the sidelines right now outside of the Pro League that could get their opportunities somewhere or another. And I'm sure that probably some of these guys
mixed in with some of the players that are benched right now is what we will see when expansion does at some point come into play. Thought this is pretty remarkable as well. Just to finish off the video with a couple of interesting things. This comes out from GG Breaking Point a couple of days ago, talking about the hardpoint KD leaders of the CDL 2021 season. I believe the minimum maps played here was only 2 maps, I think Hydra on Moscow, but still, some of these stats are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, as you can see, Checkmate hardpoint, Drazah leads the KD race with a 1.32, Garrison, it's Simp with a 1.43, Moscow Hydra has a 1.33. It's pretty remarkable to see like an SMG player, I suppose, doing so well on a map like Moscow, and really in general, it's the SMGs outside of Drazah just dominating these maps in general. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm pretty sure that Simp has played Raid hardpoint 4 times, and he has a 1.76 average KD. Like, that is just absolutely absurd. And well, actually, fair play to Prestinni with a 1.61 every time that they have played Apocalypse on average. But it is remarkable to me every single time how good Simp is, and this pretty interesting tweet that came out from Zoomer actually on, well, way back in the 10th of April. I kind of had this saved up and was finding a moment to talk about it. Simp has been the best player for the last 3 years. Ever since he came on the scene at CDL London, he's been an absolute monster. He's a walking 1.2. He does it without even thinking about it, it seems, and it's honestly crazy that the stats he puts up series after series without barely dropping the ball, certainly. And well, this came out from Simp actually not too long ago as well, talking about the fact that, like, if I don't retire with aBeZy as my duo, something significantly went wrong. And you do have to wonder, right, like, if aBeZy and Simp just stay together for the next, like, 10 years, I mean, who knows how long these guys could play by each other's sides, and they'll probably retire with, well, World Championships aplenty, and well, they'll also probably retire being considered some of the best Call of Duty players to ever play the game. There's already a discussion that Simp is maybe top 10 of Call of Duty players of all time already, despite only being around just a couple of years at this point. I wanted to finish off with this from Crimsix as well that I thought was pretty entertaining. We did talk about this just the other day during the CDL match, Crimsix versus the CDL PC, that was making a fair bit of noise. I'll play this on screen for you guys to enjoy just as the video ends with well, Crimsix getting kind of frustrated. I believe Ben was saying in reply actually, the fact that maybe it was like a CPU fan or something clipping some sort of power cord, which certainly may make a little bit of a noise like this. But yeah, kind of funny that Crimsix had to deal with this while trying to fry kids on the main stage. But do take your thoughts on all this stuff on the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Like, you enjoyed this content, other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.